Welcome everyone. We're extremely excited to kick off this acceleration program together.
We're trying to solve a problem with AI, or we think we need AI to solve a problem. Really looking at, how do we have a brain, quote unquote, solve any kind of problem.
Let's make it work together. Let's create some business impact, and let's make sure that we make this successful.
Yeah, I think it is all about learning. To stay relevant, you need to continuously get out of your own comfort zone in order to learn. And if you keep on learning, and it doesn't matter whether it's in a big multinational or in a startup or a scale-up or whatever.
The dynamics of it is as important as.
So let's talk about something around conscious engineering.
I received 50 no's before I got the first yes. The point is not whether you will be hit. You will be hit. The point is how quickly are you back on your feet. That's the only thing which matters.
This is indeed the right problem statement. Might there be other
Thank you so much for the intro.
Good evening, everyone. Happy to meet everybody.
Hello, everyone.
Hi, everyone.
We hope this short video gives you a glimpse of what ARTC Startup Challenge is about. Now, I'd like to invite Dr. Andy Lee, Director of New Business and Digital at ARTC, to give a quick introduction of what ARTC Startup Challenge is about. Andy, please.
Hi, good day, everyone. Good to have you guys joining us in this webinar, and also appreciate your time as well. Probably I'll just run through a short introduction of ARTC as well as what ARTC Startup Challenge is about. ARTC is a platform built upon the strong partnership between the public and private sectors, and it's a consortium based focusing on advanced manufacturing and remanufacturing. When we first started, we have about 5 members to 15 to 29 during our openings of ARTC. And today, we have about more than 80 consortium members from MMCs to SMEs. And now we have a different flavor by adding startups into this ecosystem. The whole idea of this startup challenge is to grow the local startup ecosystem. When we first having this idea, toying about startup was in 2017. However, during then, we find that the landscape is still not very promising in terms of the crowd of startup is still not there yet. That's why I think we hold back until last year, previous year, 2019, when we really look into the landscape of Singapore in terms of startup, there's a tremendous growth of the ecosystem. And due to that, we came up with this idea of creating a startup challenge for ARTC. That's why if you can look at the slide, we do have a vision to translate ARTC as a recognized so-called Asian Startup Launchpad for advanced manufacturing. The whole vision of this is based on advanced manufacturing. During our market survey, we found that there's a lot of digital companies in fintech, in a lot of consumer areas and stuff. However, we find that there's a gap where the startups are not exploring in terms of manufacturing and advanced manufacturing. Thus, we have this vision to look into this. And of course, the mission is to attract and incubate scaled-up startups into the advanced manufacturing sector, particularly working with our industry members from MMCs to SMEs. What we want to do is to look into how are we able to benefit the startups by bringing them into this ecosystem, working with the real industry partners, creating a POCs, and then to help the startup to go to market. And also for our members, industry members, it also benefit by test-bidding new solutions in the low-risk environment with ARTC to increase their chance of success using new technologies. So by providing this avenue for startups to grow and to bring fresh perspective to our members, I think we are able to boost the advanced manufacturing sectors as well as the startup ecosystem and to the economy of Singapore as well. So today, in this journey, comprising of the public sector, industries, and startups, is exciting and fruitful for all parties. And we are very grateful to have our many partners that we went through with us. And today we also have Michelle from DataVLT, Edwin from Rolls-Royce to join us in this webinar. I'm looking forward to have a great discussion with them too. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Andy. Thank you so much for this insightful introduction. Now that you know more about the ARTC Startup Challenge, I'd like to introduce our panelists for today. So we have with us here, first up, I'd like to introduce Edwin Ng, Partnership Manager from Rolls-Royce. Hi, Edwin. Could you say hi and give a quick intro of yourself?
Yes, no problem. Thank you, Chanson. Good morning, guys. I might not be able to see all of you, but I can see some of you. My name is Edwin, and I'm the Partnership Manager for Rolls-Royce. I've been in this role for many years. I've been with Rolls-Royce for 13 years and working with A-Star for the last 1 decade. So that makes me a little bit older than a lot of you. I will save the rest of the the feedback about working with DataVault or with ARTC or A-Star later. But in general, we have enjoyed at least 2 decades of partnerships with ARTC or with A-Star. So the experience so far has been very, very positive, and we look forward to more collaboration with A-Star as well as the other partners like DataVault and so on. And I hope to see you guys soon. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Edwin. Thanks a lot for the quick introduction. Next up, we have Michelle Yeoh, co-founder at DataVault. Hi, Michelle. Could you say hi and give us a quick intro?
Hi. Okay. Hi. Good morning, everyone. Thanks for your time. And for me, I am, well, you know, as what Chanson has said, I'm one of the co-founders of DataVault. There's actually 3 of us. And of course, at DataVault, we essentially build AI systems for companies. And personally, for myself, you know, or rather for the company of 3 co-founders, we come with a variety of experiences from very different backgrounds. And right now, with this whole entire digital and data transformation and revolution that's going on, I think it's more important than not that we actually do something to help ourselves rather than, you know, always looking out to then depend or hopefully rely on some of the external companies that might come and help us. The reason why I'm saying that is because there's just way too much work to be done and not enough help out there. So yeah, really excited to have started this journey with ARTC and with Rolls-Royce as well. And you know, whoever's listening out there, you guys just need to know that there's no one company that can actually say that they can fulfill every single need and requirement out there in the global market. It's just not possible. Yeah, exciting.
Yeah, thank you, Michelle. I do agree with you that I think startups is a very difficult and long journey, and we all need a little help along the way.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so thanks a lot. So next up, we have Dr. Andy Lee, Director of New Business and Digital from ARTC. Hi, Andy. Could you say hi and give a quick introduction of yourself?
Hi, I'm Andy, as Chancellor already introduced me. I have been with ARTC for 1 month shy of 7 years. So February will be my 7th year in ARTC. I started in 2014 where ARTC was still a very young so-called program before converting into a research institute. And with that, throughout the last 6 years, it has been a very good journey from growing from just a handful of members to today's with more than 300 staff, 80 members globally, and a lot of joint labs and a lot of, I would say, more transitional type of research and solutions into the industries. I'm very excited to look into more types of initiative to be created in A-Star, and so that with that, we can bring more value to the startups, to the ecosystems, and to Singapore as well. Yeah, I think that's my conclusion of what I have been with ARTC and A-Star today. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Andy. Thanks for the quick introduction. So today, actually, we were supposed to have Dr. Thomas, a scientist from IHPC, to join us as well, but he's not feeling well today, so he's unable to participate. Let us jump straight into the panel discussion proper. So DataVLT is one of the startup Rtc Startup Challenge program, and they worked on POC with Rolls-Royce during this accelerator program. In the process, Ertdc and IHPC supported the POC with technical resources and knowledge. So Michelle and Edwin, they are no strangers to innovation challenges. So maybe I'd like to start off by asking both of them, what was your experience with these past innovation challenges in general? Maybe Michelle, would you like to start first?
Yeah, sure. I think this what ARTC has provided with this startup challenge is hugely different from what we've seen quite a fair bit of other challenges out there. The main difference here is to the fact that they're looking for people who are able to do the job, or who's able to innovate to a certain a level and actually, produce something that's not just, talking about another level on innovation, but also bringing that to life. The other experiences that we've had with other challenges here, well, call it fortunate or unfortunately here, is that a lot of the challenges, or rather the stakeholders who are looking for solutions, they're looking for a unicorn, all right, or they're looking for a super Einstein. And so you're shopping for an Einstein with each and every other startup out there, which is it can get a little bit disappointing sometimes, because then you go like, so you're looking for an Einstein, and they go, no, I'm not looking for an Einstein, but I need something that's very, very different from what everybody else is going to propose. And you go, okay, yeah. So that's been, a very common thread, or rather a common, I would say, expectation, right? That a lot of people are asking for, which sometimes it's not that, I would say, realistic, because what you're looking for are, startups or companies who can really bring forth a solution that really works well, that is really sort of efficient more than anything else, and has done a little bit more innovation rather than a huge giant step of innovation like flying to Mars or something like that. So yeah, that's I mean, for us, that's been the biggest sort of differentiator so far.
Okay, nice. What about you, Edwin? What were your past innovation challenges experience?
Well, first of all, Rolls-Royce is a pretty traditional company. It's a British-based company, and the organization is well over 100 years old. In traditional form, we tend to work with very big partners, and that's because of strategic reasons. So for a company like ourselves, we started on the innovation journey maybe a decade ago, or maybe less than that. So our journey has not been perhaps as good as it should be, but the experience that we had with the recent startup challenge with ARTC has been a very, very positive one. While we were, I'll be honest here, we are a little bit old school. So we tried to influence Johnson and the rest of the team a little bit by, Michelle is laughing, but we were just trying to make sure that we had all the right mechanism in place. And the reason behind that is not so much about going overboard with control. It was more about trying to guarantee certain level of success. We believe that certain things needs to follow in certain manners. You need to have, for example, an initial discussion and followed by technical deep dive, leading to scoping, leading to project agreements, so on and so forth. While this might not sound exactly very exciting to the new startup world, where you say, hey, we want an Einstein, for example, and then Michelle goes off and try to find me the best scientist who can give me the best idea. Sometimes it's worthwhile to take just one tiny step back and relook at the problem statement, and then try to define what are the scopes that's involved in the project, and what exactly are we trying to get out from this collaboration with any partners that might be in this program. So that's really my experience, and overall it has been a very positive one for us. In fact, we saw more than we expected from Michelle and her teams. So thanks.
Thanks, Edwin. Yeah, I do agree. I think startup challenges or open innovation challenges in general are a way for perhaps MNCs or companies in traditional businesses to get access to new ideas, fresh ideas, and also new technology out there. Startups like DataVLT, where Michelle is a co-founder, they bring a lot of expertise and new ideas to these kind of traditional industries, and push ahead with breakthroughs. So maybe Andy, I'd like to ask, how do you think this ARTC in startup challenge or innovation challenge, how does it differ from other innovation challenges out there?
I would say that ARTC started with this first initial startup challenge as of 2020. We start preparing 2019. I would say it's a learning lesson. What we're trying to learn from the industries, or what is the norm for doing a startup. So I believe that during the whole last 1 year of the cycle, going through from preparing how to run a startups, to putting up with engaging members, and then to so-called getting the POCs with the industry partners and members, and then to deliver. I think it has been a great journey that we have learned. To answer your question, what is the difference is what we find out that is like in the past, there's a lot of so-called digital startups, and ARTC started with this startup challenge is due to primarily we are trying to explore what are the digital space that outside of ARTC that they are doing, and what are the digital capability and technologies that we don't have to grow ourselves or to do it ourselves. And with that, we bring them, the startup, to come in to enable so-called ARTC as well as the members from a totally different perspective, or with the type of solutions that they can provide. I think that is the difference in terms of, I would say, what we're trying to do. We have members, which is the problem statements owner, that they want solutions to be solved. They want solutions. And then what we're trying to do is, instead of ARTC doing ourselves, we want to get the ecosystem, the startup ecosystem, to come in to provide something that can run fast and quick, and to create a solution so that MMCs like Rolls-Royce and even some of the SMEs are able to understand totally from a news perspective. Yeah, thanks.
Okay, thanks, Andy. What about you, Michelle? Because you personally has been through the ARTC Startup Challenge, and I also understand you participate in other startup challenges. So do you feel any differences?
Yeah, hugely. I think where a lot of startups, or even with the teams or departments within ARTC, I think one thing that I do have to say, and first of all, say thank you very much for all the help that you've given. But why I'm saying that, and just to give you context here, is that with the other startup challenges, they kind of don't have that internal ecosystem link up. So right now, what you have is a very good support system, right? Where you bring in the startups, and then you do all the projects, and you bring them through, and then you make sure that there is a process flow, and the communication channels are open. It doesn't go into a cold storage, or you don't know what happened, or a black hole. A lot of the startup challenges out there essentially are like that. There isn't a support system. There isn't somebody that they can call 24/7 and say, hey, we're facing a problem, like, can you come and help us? Or there's no response, we need some communication and all that kind of stuff. While, you might say, well, they have the boot camps and all. Yes, that's a part and parcel, but that's not what I'm talking about. It's like when you match sort of like your problem owner with the startup, and you're doing the POC, that is what we're talking about. As much as would like to say it's always a problem owner, but no, it's not. Sometimes the startup goes cold as well. So that part where you try to sort of make sure that things are moving, it doesn't fall into a pit hole. That is what is very missing in a lot of startup challenges out there. And some of the startup challenge, I'm not talking about small names or startup challenges. They're talking about big startup challenges out there that have this problem. And then that is the reason why after a while, when they tell you that they close off, right, the deadline for the startup, for the problem statement proposal submission, and then there's no sound. and there's no announcements, there's no updates on who has gotten the projects, until like maybe 1 year later, and you go, hang on a minute, that deadline was like last year. The announcement was only this year. So I would say that transparency and that aid and that support system is really not there, and that actually doesn't help either parties, because it's then opportunity that's missed or wasted, simply because they just didn't continue the communications, which is quite sad sometimes. Yeah.
Thanks. Thanks, Michelle. Yeah. So I think at this ARTC Startup Challenge, what we try to do is really to provide the startups the support ecosystem. We have members like Rolls-Royce who are in the ecosystem, and they are very willing and ready to support startups and try new ideas with startups. So we try to support it. And also, I think from a technical angle, A-Star and ARTC, we do have the technical resources to support.
Oh, yeah,
startups.
absolutely. I mean, I think that was really good, because am I jumping the gun, or should I just talk about it?
Go
Yeah.
ahead. Yeah.
So that was good. I mean, we were able to work with Dr. Thomas. Unfortunately, he's not here today. He's been a great help. Now, of course, working with him, it's not saying that, so doesn't mean that you guys don't have the expertise. No. But the fact is that, when you talk about an ecosystem and you talk about reliance or support, it really is about working with each other. And in this case, what Thomas came to us, and his sort of like great support was validation, and really like, being able to look at our work and say, you know what, guys, you're on the right track, you're, a bit off, maybe we can consider this and that. And especially when we're talking about building AI systems or solutions for companies, we cannot discount the fact that we do need a sounding board, and we need to be able to sort of throw off our ideas and go like, we can do better, or, hey, that's really good. So when you're working alone, and we're all in our roles, right, in our teams and our whatever, it's very easy for us to get into a rabbit hole and just stay there. And then after they say, I think this is the best thing, right, since sliced bread. And then you go out and you say, oh, okay, so it's not the best thing since sliced bread. So how am I going to do it? How am I going to do it now? So this is where we go. There is no shame. That's what I'm trying to say, right? And it's not about pride saying that, oh, we did this and that's all we did. We didn't need any help. It's not about that. At this day and age, with the pace of tech moving and how we want to be able to progress so quickly, really it's not so much more of a my turf and your turf anymore. I mean, I'm not talking about data sharing or anything of that. So I'm just talking about technicalities of how to get to a better solution, right? And that is really quite important. And of course, when you talk about development, software development, you've got open source and everything else. Right now, for AI, for machine learning, for everything, we need to get to that stage as well. And not saying that it's not moving. It's started already, but I think more so they're not. That's why, community building and being able to talk to the different teams in A-Star, ARTC and all that is fantastic. It has actually helped us a lot and opened our eyes to a whole lot more possibilities. Yeah, that's what I wanted to add on. I mean, if you go to other startup challenges, I don't think this would be royally available to any of them. So yeah.
Right. Okay. Thanks a lot. Thanks, Michelle. So yeah, talking about that, I think maybe I'd like to ask Edwin. What do you think about the experience working with DataVLT in the PLC?
Yeah, before I jump into that, I think I want to add on a little bit of what Michelle and Andy have said earlier. I think the support system is extremely and critical. It's almost, I don't want to use the word nanny, but maybe that's the best description. If you have somebody who is having an equal share of responsibility and motivation, more importantly, motivation, trying to make things happen, I think that is a big help. So in the scenario of ourselves, where Rolls-Royce presented ourselves as the problem statement owners, Michelle comes in as a solution provider. Now, the two of us can talk about it and try to work things out, but if we have ARTC and we have ARTC standing in between the two of us, in fact, not between, but if you kind of like try to form a triangle, if you like, so that tripartite, not agreement, but tripartite relationship or partnership is great, because each one of us will keep a tab on each other. Have you made the payment? Have you given the problem statement? have we really defined what are the risks, blah blah blah. So the three of us have to keep that openness going, as well as the willingness to really participate in the program and speak out if you see a problem or provide a solution if you already have a solution. The part where Thomas comes in from IHBC, for Michelle's team, probably also is a case where a fresh pair of eyes is being being utilized to look at the problem statement. So Thomas could perhaps add or enhance the current solution going forward, or and say that, you know what, Michelle, probably this is not the right path to do. We have tested this before. It's not going to work. So I think in that particular ecosystem, it works quite well for us. So that's kind of like my small 2 cents input to the previous question. Now, coming back to your current question about the experience with DataVault, I think the previous one kind of like also summarized what we are going to say. So the experience has been very positive. I think Michelle and the teams are fantastic. Full stop, just fantastic. Okay. The only guy who is not really fantastic is Bobby Rolls-Royce, because in many instances, just bear in mind that this is one of those just a few times that we have embarked on ourselves on a innovation challenge with startups. So even for ourselves, it would take a bit of effort, or just going there and filling it out and see that what's really needed to run a startup project. So for us, it was maybe at some point we were the one who is holding the team back. But I think Michelle and yourself would forgive us for our
No worries.
small amount of delays here and there in the project. But overall, it has been very, very positive.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks, Edwin. Yeah. Would you be able to share a little bit about the project and what is the outcome of the POC and how has it benefited Rolls-Royce?
Yeah, sure. I think this question already for this particular part, we can split this into two. I can talk a bit about the problem statement. Maybe Michelle can come in and say, Michelle, I'm not that technically good. You got to help me here. Okay. So the problem statement that we have was that we have a lot of engines flying around the world. Even in COVID-19 days, we still have planes flying around. Now, we all these engines, when they are in operation, meaning to say when they're in the skies or just prior to taking off and go into the sky, they will have lots of communications, and you can treat them almost as SMS coming into your data collection system. And this, we call them fault messages, but they are not really fault messages. They are notifications, if you like. And this notification is like telling you, hey, the temperature here is a little bit higher, the pressure here is a little bit lower. Now, and sometimes there will be stuff like they say, we're expecting this to take off, or start 1 minute earlier, but it's not happening, things like that. So those are our mass of, that we can imagine the huge amount of data that we have. Per plane, you have at least 2 engines. So you got a lot of data. So what we did was that we threw all this data across to Michelle. And I asked Michelle, say, hey, Michelle, can you make sense of these data? Can you tell me if we have all this data in hand, how am I going to say, make a prediction about what's going to happen next? For example, if a part is scheduled to be replaced, now I would like to have the information way ahead of before it happens. Maybe 7 days or even a month or 2 months before it happens. Now, if the system that Michelle is going to propose is able to give me that information or give me that very accurate prediction, you can imagine the amount of downtime that I'm going to have. And that's going to save me and the airlines a lot of money, and we'll make sure we continue to service our customers in the air round the dot. So that's kind of like our problem statement.
Okay, thanks. Maybe Michelle, would you like to talk a bit about the solution side, since Edwin has spoken about the problem side?
Yeah, so actually, I would say that it's been quite an interesting journey, and okay, so building on to what he has continued to say, right? So what we've been able to do is to take his data and look at predicting sort of like all these messages, at least, well, for 7 days, and then, we move on from there. And of course, the accuracy rate that we were able to garner was 80% and beyond, which is actually pretty good, and we're pretty proud of it. But of course, there's a lot of refinements and work that needs to be done. And what interestingly, it's understanding the relationships between the fault messages and how they relate to each other. And then, of course, then being able to provide recommendations as to, which sort of fault messages are occurring more frequently, and how are they related to one another. So if you're looking at this particular message, and which is A, for example, and it might sort of like it causes B and C, and it becomes more regular and it becomes a more frequent in terms of the pop-up, then that's where we can look at it as a recommendation to say that, oh yeah, okay, yes, we actually do need to replace certain parts, or we need to change out, or whichever the case is. And this is predicted in 7 days, and of course that can be sort of inputted into the flight path, right, as to where you're going to be next. So let's say for a plane, I'm making this up, right? Say, let's say a flight is going from Hong Kong to Singapore and then to Sydney. So of which, if you've already seen this in Hong Kong, and there is a couple of days leeway, or at least 1.5 weeks or so, you know that this plane is going to be landing in Sydney. So then what the Rolls-Royce team can eventually do is to be able to make sure that the parts that needs to be replaced or changed out, or whichever the case is, then gets done in Sydney. So with this prediction, it's not, I was going to, it's not easy, because there's a whole lot of data sets to be looked at. It's not just one, but also, when you put in other variables into play, there's always that consideration that the timelines might get shortened. We're not too scared about it being lengthened. Is actually okay. So if after Sydney you go back to Singapore and you still be fine, and I'm like, okay. But if anything happens along the way and we track that and there's an anomaly, for example, then that's where we go like, oh, hard tech, right? Okay, we need to let you know ASAP. So this is where, this whole entire project has been really, really quite interesting for us. And of course, what you guys need to understand out there is that there's just so much data, and we're talking about capacity, being able to process all this data. And that's why in working with Rolls-Royce has given us a fresh pair of eyes into the different perspectives of big, huge MNCs and conglomerates, where they're very successful in what they do. They're really good at what they do, and the whole world trusts them with flights and huge important sort of machineries that help us with our day-to-day lives. But that there's a whole lot more work that needs to be done behind. So it's not something that stops, and it's not something that you can say, oh, yeah, right, they should be able to do everything. Yes, they can, right? But it's just not enough manpower. And this is where we go, yeah, okay, let's pitch in. That's where I think so far our experience has been pretty good. And honestly, we're really quite privileged to have that opportunity to be able to do this.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thanks, Michelle. I can't imagine how difficult it will be to do all the data wrangling from all the different Rolls-Royce engine out there. It must be a huge mammoth task. So maybe now I'd like to turn the spotlight to Andy. Maybe would you like to share a bit about like your personal motivation for creating the ARTC Startup Challenge, and how does ARTC help members and startups alike?
So the motivation, I will say that just now during my opening, I did mention that I've been ARTC for almost 7 years. So as we grow, we cannot be forever growing. ARTC startups with, I think, 6.5 people, we used to joke about it. And today it's more than 300. And with capabilities from 3 capabilities to 6 different technology capabilities. And like I said, we cannot just keep on adding. So the motivation for us when we look at the startup space, especially for the digital, because digital is so fast, it's moving so fast, and it's changing very fast as well. The best way to do it is to leverage. So we are looking into how to leverage the ecosystem, how to leverage, which I think ESG, IMDA, all this has been creating the startup ecosystem in Singapore. Since, like I said, in 2017, when we look at the space, it's still not so mature. But if you today you look into in terms of Singapore startups, there's thousands of them, and they are all probably in the digital space. So what I'm trying to leverage is to use this ecosystem where all their capabilities are in digital space, pull them in and just to direct them into a different domain from the fintech and stuff, the consumer side, to ask them to look into, hey, I got a lot of problems, I got a lot of solutions that I need in terms of digital. Can you guys come in here and help us? So if you look into ARTC, we have a group of 80 industry members. I always like to joke about, in terms of market cap, we are probably more than $1 trillion. So with that sheer mass, and they have a lot of problem statements. And with that, that's why we decided to start a startup challenge, using problem statements to attract startups companies that in the first startup challenge in terms of AI, to seek them, to pull them in, to ask them, what can you help? How can you help? So that was the motivation behind to look into how to help ARTC. Having said that, I would also like to say that A-Star provided a tremendous support in terms of creating the startup. Without A-Stars, especially A-Star Central, as well as Accelerate, the type of support that they've given us for the last 1 year, and from the RIs that the technical expertise comes in. That's where I think when I look into this, that's how it motivates me to create this startup. The reason is I have problem statements owner, I have suppliers, I have startups that can create solutions. I have A-Star as a base that have technology capabilities and resources to help me. So I'm just putting things together. I think that's one of the key motivations for me. And I think it's good for ARTC as well as a whole of A-Star. We are reaching out to other RIs to pull in their capabilities, to use their expertise. I think that is what we want to achieve. Thanks.
Okay, thanks, Andy. Yeah, I think you mentioned about putting things together. So this analogy kind of resonates because it's like you're trying to cook a soup, and then you put in different ingredients together to brew a very potent soup. And I think that's the whole idea behind ARTC Startup Challenge as well. We are the base, the soup base where different ingredients can come in.
Yeah, exactly. It's just like the customers. We have customers coming to a restaurant, in this case like Rolls-Royce, saying, hey, I want to have something. Then we have a cook like Michelle say, hey, I can cook something, but what can you cook? Is it what my customers want? And I'm like the store manager saying, okay, I have to solve these things and I create something out of it. I think with this context, I think since the start of ARTC Consortium, the whole idea is the public-private partnership, and it's always a journey. We don't see each other as a customer and a supplier type of relationship. We look at each other as partnership, that we are walking through a journey. And so far, throughout my almost 7 years in ARTC, that's what we have been trying to do in terms of public and private, and now pulling in startups to do that. Yeah, thanks.
Okay, yeah, I like to stay with you, Andy. You mentioned, 7 years you have been with ARTC, and I think you have been in the advanced manufacturing sector for a much longer time as well. What kind of new business opportunities do you think there are in the advanced manufacturing sector?
So in terms of advanced manufacturing, I think if you look at it, it's like, especially through the digital capabilities that you're going to build. How are you going to put the overlay of digital onto the technical capabilities in terms of advanced manufacturing? That is one of the key focus that I think everyone is driving into, especially for COVID-19. Suddenly you see that everyone is interested in digital. The only good outcome of COVID-19 is driving digital very fast. And with digital, is one of the enabler for advanced manufacturing for companies that they are doing very extreme type of technology capabilities, and with digital supporting it and helping it and automating it as well. I think these are the few key things that we are looking at. I would say digital is something that cut across. We want to see how it cut across in terms of what are the different areas. For instance, like Michelle just mentioned, AI. Then we also have, I would say, inspection. Inspection is one of the key capabilities in advanced manufacturing, I would say, because inspection comes with condition monitoring, and that will help in terms of how are you going to pass all your single processes before you finish one product. Then the digital part will help you to enable in terms of the data, giving you the analytics and so. I think yes, I think this is roughly what I think. Thanks.
Okay, thanks, Andy. Yeah, I do agree that digital is a very recurring theme among a lot of startups nowadays, especially in advanced manufacturing. And I think other topics like IoT, AR, VR, digital twins, these are a lot of digital concepts that are very popular nowadays for startups to work on, and also they're very a lot of companies, a lot of MNCs, they are very interested to explore technologies in this area. So, okay. Thank you so much, panelists, for all the responses. I think I see a few questions coming in on the Q&A. Maybe we can take a few questions from the Q&A box. Okay, so I see a questions by Chin Kyung. Hi, Chin Kyung. Chin Kyung asks, what kind of support does ARTC provide for more hardware-oriented startup in general? Maybe, Andy, would you like to take this question?
Okay, in terms of the startup challenge, when we post it up, I think this round in terms of the IIoT challenge for the second challenge that we are creating, IMDA has provided some funding, as well as ARTC in terms of manpower. We're also trying to leverage, as what we have done in the past, the technical capabilities that can support the startup. Like for instance, let's say for Chin Kyung's, in terms of robotics, if you have any so-called capabilities that you need to refine, you can leverage on A-Star's robotics team to help you to skill up, or even to help you to deepen the technologies during this startup challenge once you qualify. Yep.
Okay, thanks, Andy. Okay, I see a next question from 1E. What qualities do you look out for in startups, and what support can we expect? Maybe, Edwin, would you like to share a bit about what kind of qualities do you look for in a startup when you want to work with them?
Yeah, sure. But it's the usual stuff you guys can probably already know. Because a startup, the way we see it is that a startup is usually a company that has, say, 15, 25 guys, something along those figures. So we expect these organizations to be a lot more agile compared to ourselves, where we don't make decisions 1 week later. So if the project is met with a challenge, we expect these organizations or young organizations to react in a lot faster than traditional companies like A-Star, for example. No, but yeah, so that's one. And so the ability to be flexible and agile, I think is one of those very important characteristic, if I may, of a startup company that we are looking for. Other stuff, of course, the quality of the work, deliverables, but I think in many, and probably Andy will concur with me on this, is communication. A lot of times it's not that the partners don't have these capabilities to deliver, but the lack of communication will lead to confusion, misunderstanding, and nothing gets done. So I think for startup companies, those are the few key important characteristics that they must have if they want to be, staying ahead with of their competitors.
Yeah, I agree with Edwin. I think one of the key areas that we are looking at is also what is their so-called capability. We do not want a company or startup to come to us to say, I can do A to Z. What is your unique selling point? What is your core capability? What is your core technology? We want to identify that, and are you able to provide solutions? And if not, if you are not 100%, what can A-Star help you to beef you up, and then to deliver to the customers in this startup challenge. I think that's why I keep saying that it's a tripartite, minimally a tripartite type of relationship that we want to solve our members' problems. At the same time, I want to help the startup in terms of the lack of the technology capabilities that they have and how we can leverage on A-Star to beef them up. I think with that, we will create a solution for the customers. At the same time, we are able to help to level up the startup as well. Yeah.
I think in many instances, I mean, this is going back to some of the points that Andy and Transfer was discussing about, you know, how is this startup very different from the rest? Probably Michelle also chipped in at that point, was that this wasn't really, the ARTC Startup Challenge wasn't a platform where we invite 1 million people, startup to go there and present what your skills and what you're capable of. I think we started off slightly differently, but correct me if I'm wrong, Andy. What we did was that because of the memberships that we have, the unique consortium that we have, we were able to do a few things in parallel. The first one was to gather what are some of the problem statements or suitable problem statements from the consortium members. Now, what I meant by suitable problem statement was we're not going to ask the startup to solve a technical issue, not a material problem, for example, an advanced material composite, that kind of stuff. We were very conscious of the fact that the digital capabilities from the startup, it's going to be more useful in some areas than others. I think that was the first thing that we recognized. The second one was, I think ARTC did a fantastic job together with the rest of the guys in trying to determine who was the best group of startup companies that is able to match this problem statement. I think those two things are very, very critical to make sure that we have a success story going forward with any startup collaboration, with any SMEs or with MNC companies, doesn't really matter. But I think those two are very important ingredients.
I think there's another one very important ingredient is the commitment from all parties.
Yeah, that's true.
Because coming, like I said, the members that come in with the problem statements, they are willing to commit the manpower, the resources to drive from pitching, driving the pitching session, working along with the startup to let them understand the problem statements, all the way to creating the POCs, and then to go for the demo day to showcase what they have done and what can they deliver in a sense. I think this is very, very important because the commitment will be the one that drives through the whole session. Yeah.
True. So I think from my end, just to chip in, I mean, you guys came from the client and then, you know, the problem owner, the organization standpoint, from startup to startups out there, you know.
Michelle, we are partners.
Yeah, I know. Partners like partners. We're just saying that as a startup, right, previously out of this ecosystem and then now in the ecosystem, which is fantastic. Within your own spectrum, what I can tell you here is that the three things that is consistently in my head, which, you know, might prove helpful for you guys. One is clarity. So don't be afraid to ask. And, you know, it's not about being rude. It's about making sure that you know exactly what they are asking for, what the problem statement really is, what can be done, what can't be done, what is available and not available, and then, you know, making sure that you know what you're stepping into and how to then provide a solution. So that's one, clarity. Next is pivoting. Now I'm not talking about absolute 100% pivoting of your business, how you're going to do this or your solutions and all that, but pivoting in sense where, you know, when you're faced with a solution or you're faced with a problem, sorry, how would you then get to a solution? I mean, I'm sure you have 101 ways to get around it, but that's the whole point. It's 101 ways and not just one. So if you only have one or two and you refuse to budge, then that begs the question of if you're ready to take on, you know, the fact that for most of you, you probably would have experience dealing with clients, you know, and dealing with all these different problems out there. But the point here is that you know, there's not one solution or one problem that comes to you which is exactly the same. There's always some differences out there. There's always some kink to it that you kind of need to address, so that being able to pivot is another. And the third one, which is often more than not the most difficult, is actually openness. Openness in terms of when a critique is being given, right? Or let's say, oh, I think, can we do this? Can we do that? When, let's say, partners or clients or whoever would be able to give you that. Now, do you then jump and change immediately, or do you take it in stride and look at your work and go, you know what, there's a fair point. We do need to improve, or there is room for improvement. Of course, you know, everybody's proud of your own solutions. And of course, when somebody says something like that and you go like, oh, what do you know, right? I know better because this is my solution. But that's not the point. For us to be able to move on, be able to grow your solution, to grow the company, to grow the different aspects and perspectives that you can then take in or not, decide not to take in, this is something that is very crucial as a growing company or a growing startup. You can't afford to close your doors and have a forbidden wall and say, no, I'm not open to listening to what you have to say. So 3 things that I hope is useful, that really is quite important.
Yeah. Thanks, Michelle. Thanks, Edwin and Iwo. I think this is a very good topic, and it reached out. I mean, it raised a lot of important points of how startups and MNCs and companies can work together, and really a lot of insightful comments out there. Yeah, I do agree that there's a lot of commitment, takes a lot of commitment, a lot of communication, a lot of trust. It's really like a marriage of 2 companies, within a startup and MNC, I would say. So there's one more question that I'd like to take online. We're running a bit out of time as well. So this question is from Vanati. What is the form of support that ARTC offers for startup? Is it both financial and technical? Maybe I can take this question. Yeah, like mentioned earlier, right? There's a financial support that's given by in the form of grant money by IMDA and ARTC. Also, we for the upcoming round of this startup challenge, winners get 2 years free of ARTC membership, and then we also provide them with like an innovation voucher. Actually, it's vouchers that you can use with A-Star RIs, where you can get technical support, expertise from all the different scientists and engineers we have within A-Star to help you in the product development stage. So yeah.
So how much is that?
Maybe this one I'll let Claire explain a bit later.
Okay.
So in the last 5 minutes, Claire will bring us through the upcoming Startup Challenge 2021 and share more about the details. Yeah.
I think there's one more question from Yong Xin. If a startup fall outside of the 3 categories, would the startup still be considered? I think what we are looking at is mainly what is the problem statements and what can you create that we are able to explore. I think that is the most important, because the problem statements come from the customers, and what we want is always creating solutions. And by creating solutions, we are able to solve the problem statements, and we are able to help the startup to so-called bring them to market. I think that is more important. Hopefully Yongxin can, if you have any more questions, can come directly to us. Thanks.
Yeah, Yongxin. If you have a great idea and you'd like to join us in the ARTC Startup Challenge, feel free to contact us. If not, you can still send your proposals in. I mean, we will evaluate based on the competition rules. But we will definitely be very interested to connect with you and any of the startups out there who would like to join us in this journey.
Yeah. Thanks.
Okay, maybe we can take one last question. Maybe our question to Andy. How would scientists benefit from working with startups?
You're breaking up.
Sorry. Maybe I'd like to ask this question. How would scientists benefit from working with startups?
Okay, maybe let me repeat Swanson's question. How do scientists benefit from working with startups? So we are talking about ARTC, A-Stars, so-called scientists and experts, where they have a lot of ideas, concepts, and they have been pushing the technology age. So how we can help them? I believe scientists, I always like to say, they always come up with new ideas, the innovation. But I believe the most important thing they want to see is how it fruits. So if we are able to use startup to create a solution and they can support the startup, or they themselves can become the startup, and then to create the solution, I think that is one of the most important things that we can explore to create solutions for them. I think the initial part will be the scientists, through working with startups, understand the difficulties of a startup companies. The so-called, we always say, the real world, the industries where limited resources startups has, and how they're trying to survive in the real world. And scientists can really appreciate that through the journey that they go through together. And with that, hopefully with their technical capability, they can enable the startup. I think that is one of the key benefits. Also to give exposure to the scientists. A lot of time, I believe scientists create innovations. However, it's always very difficult for us to find an adopter. How are you going to use the solution, or is this solution what the industries want or what the market wants? So I think this is a validation process where instead of just telling people that I have an idea, I have the technical capabilities, you have to match it with the problem statements. And with that, the startup can help you to code, develop, and deliver in the sense. Yeah. Maybe Michelle can add some if from the perspective of Michelle as a startup, how the scientists help.
I think for the scientists, it's also stepping out of their comfort zone. You know, like because you're talking about real world solutions and really sort of like feet on the ground, right? There's all that great work that's being done in R&D, in research and development, and how you then bring that to a reality and how you transport that out, the knowledge that you have. That is actually really quite an experience. It's a breath of fresh air. I mean, like, you know, it's coming out of your area for a while and go like, ooh, the world looks different out there, a little bit different. So yeah, that's a difference of how, you know, at least, you know, with Thomas, he's been quite, you know, I would say quite exciting, quite invigorated. Every time he comes in, he's got all these ideas flying around, and, you know, because he's just out of his office, or rather organization, just for that little bit, you know, it's a good breath of fresh air.
Thanks, Michelle. Yeah. I think due to time, I think Ryan from Applied Chem do have a question. Chunson, can you please take this offline and refer him to our additive manufacturing team, and I think see how we can help in terms of the 3D printing capability that he's asking for. Yeah, I think. Thanks.
Yeah, okay. Sorry, due to time constraint, we will answer the rest of the questions offline. So maybe for the last few minutes, I would like to invite Claire to introduce a bit about the ARTC Startup Challenge 2021, which is currently open for submissions. Claire, please.
Hi, thank you, Chanshen. So to share about the ARTC Startup Challenge 2021, this year the theme is on Industrial Internet of Things. So looking at the current timeline, we are actually open for submission. So there's actually like 5 more days left for you guys to submit your proposal. Yep, so if you're interested, right, do seize this last opportunity to hop on the ship. Yep. So this is actually the overall timeline for what has been done and what the startups would expect. So we have like a briefing session done, and moving forward, we will have 1 day workshop, and of course, the accelerator program that Michelle has gone through as well. Yep, so you guys have been asking what are the prizes and incentives, right? So yes, along with IMDA, we will actually provide 50K cash prize to fund the startups in the prototype and the proof of concept process, as well as a 2 years ARTC membership and a 30K ARTC project credit, where you can utilize it for the ARTC scientists and engineers to help out in your project itself. Something like what Michelle has done with Thomas. Yep. And of course, an accelerator program. So for this year, there are 3 problem statements provided by our industry partners coming from Kennametal, Shell, P&G, and Edwinton. So namely 3 topics, one on predictive maintenance, on like real-time machine monitoring and predictive maintenance. Yeah, and also asset tracking, how we can use like IoT for real-time asset tracking and management system. And lastly, on remote maintenance, how we have enable interoperability among existing legacy and new installed sensors. Yep. So for those aspiring entrepreneurs and startups interested to participate in this startup challenge and just to find out more information, you can actually scan the QR code over here. Yep. And the last thing I want to say is that we are only boiled down to 5 more days. So if you are interested, right, you can actually send a message to us, email us, or you can just through this link, submit a proposal through there. Yep. That's all. Back to you, Transhan.
Okay, thank you very much, Claire. Okay, now we have just come to almost the end of the session. Maybe Andy, would you like to say a few words before we close this session?
Okay. Thank you all for participating in this last 1 hour, and hopefully the sharings do help. As I said, Startup Challenge, we started as a first cycle, now going through the second cycle. And we are trying to see how to be different, how to create this Startup Challenge in the future beyond 2020, 2021, especially looking to RE 2025. How are we going to create more impact? And I would like to leverage more in terms of the whole A-Star's capability, and definitely A-Star Central as well as Accelerate giving us the full support and toying with different ideas of how we move forward. I would like to encourage in terms of all the startup companies to explore more. A-Star is more than willing to help and to so-called to link all the dots from technology to business cases. I think this is the most important thing in terms of why we are creating this Startup Challenge. So we would like to hear from you guys more, and even if it's internal A-Star, scientists have ideas, all these, we can also try to find a venue to see how to create solutions or be part of solution providing to the members or to the industries. Yeah. Thank you very much for all. Appreciated your time. And a happy 2021. We have a good start. Thank you. Johnson, pass back to you.
Thank you. Thanks, Andy. Thanks all. So now we have come to the end of the panel discussion. Thank you very much to all the panelists, Michelle, Edwin, Andy. It was really wonderful chatting with all of you. Thank you for all your time.
Thank you all.
Thank you. Goodbye.